very good day to all of you. I hope you're doing well and ready for another interesting topic. Today, we'll talk about reading skills, focusing on its key concepts, process, and major strategies that help to enhance one's reading. By the end of this lecture, what you will be able to learn, you will be able to understand reading as an important skill, identify key components of reading process, recognize major types of reading skills, explain strategies that help to improve reading skills. So let's start with the basic concept that what are reading skills or what is reading. Reading is a foundational skill that serves as a gateway to knowledge, critical thinking, and personal growth. It is more than just decoding words on a page. It involves understanding of the text, what you are reading, interpreting the hidden meanings, and engaging with text to extract meaning and apply it in various contexts. Effective reading skills are essential for academic success, professional development, and lifelong learning, as it is the skill which goes with life. These skills encompass a range of abilities including decoding, comprehension, critical analysis, and retention. In today's information-rich world, where we are constantly bombarded with text from books, from websites, reports, and social media, mastering reading skills is crucial for navigating and making sense of this vast sea of information which we are continuously receiving from the world. This lecture will explore the components of reading skills, strategies to enhance reading skills, and the significance in personal and professional life. So basically, reading connects the writer's thoughts with the reader's understanding, enabling the transfer of knowledge, the transfer of ideas, and transfer of emotions across time and culture. In academic and professional settings, strong reading skills form the foundation for success as they allow learners to comprehend complex text. After comprehending, analyze arguments, and then integrate new information effectively. In everyday life, the ability to read critically helps individuals navigate media messages, make informed decisions from what they have understood, and engage thoughtfully with the world around them as they are receiving the data from the world around them. At its core, reading can be defined as the process of constructing meaning from a written language, like what we are receiving in the form of text. It is an interactive process between the reader and the text, where both linguistic decoding and cognitive comprehension take place simultaneously. While decoding refers to the ability to recognize written symbols and translate them into sounds or words, comprehension involves understanding and interpreting the ideas into those words which represent those ideas. This means that effective reading is both a mechanical and a mental activity. It's a linguistic activity, it's a cognitive activity as well. It requires not only recognizing words but also relating them to prior knowledge, to the context, and to the experience of the reader. So, moving towards the process of reading. Reading is not a single act but a complex, dynamic, and multi-layered process that involves several interrelated stages. It is both a psychological and linguistic activity through which a reader constructs meaning from a written text. When we read, our eyes, brain, and background knowledge, all of these factors, all of these elements work together to decode symbols, the text, interpret meaning, and make judgments about what we encounter, what we have read. The process of reading, therefore, goes beyond a simple word recognition. It integrates perception, comprehension, interpretation, and critical thinking into one continuous act of understanding. At the most basic level, reading begins with decoding. What is decoding? The ability to recognize written symbols and convert them into sounds, into words, and into meaningful units for the reader. Decoding is often referred to as the bottom up component of reading, where the reader's attention is directed toward individual letters, the individual syllables of the language, and words of the language. So, this is the foundation of reading, particularly for early learners, as it allows them to translate written symbols into meaningful language. That is how we do decoding. Without this foundation, comprehension remains superficial because the reader's mental energy is spent on identifying words rather than processing ideas. Once decoding is achieved, the reader moves into the stage of literal comprehension. By comprehension, what we mean, the understanding. At this level, the reader understands the explicit or surface meaning of the text, what the words and sentences literally state. Literal comprehension involves identifying facts, events, main ideas, and supporting details within the text. For example, when reading a story, a student demonstrates literal comprehension by answering simple questions such as who are the main characters or what happened first. This stage is essential because it provides the factual groundwork upon which higher levels of understanding are built. Without literal comprehension, it would be impossible to make inferences or evaluate the text critically. After grasping the literal meaning, readers engage in inferential comprehension, which requires reading between the lines. Inferential reading goes beyond what is directly stated. And why it goes beyond to what is directly stated? To uncover implied meanings. By implied meaning, we mean the hidden meaning, relationships or emotions within the text. It involves connecting the information in the text with the reader's own prior knowledge and experiences. By prior knowledge, we mean the background knowledge. For example, if a character in a story slams the door, the author may not explicitly say that the character is angry, but the reader infers this emotion from the context, from the setting. Inferential comprehension thus demands logical reasoning, prediction, and the ability to recognize cause and effect relationships. It is the stage that transforms a reading from a passive act of recognition to an active process of interpretation, where the reader interprets the meaning. The next level in the process of reading is critical comprehension or critical reading. At this stage, what the readers do? They analyze, evaluate, and judge the text rather than simply understanding or interpreting it. Critical reading involves questioning the author's purpose, examining bias, the favoritism, assessing the credibility of information, what is being conveyed, and complaining with the other sources. A critical reader does not accept every idea as truth because we are reading critically, but instead considers who wrote the text, why it was written, and for whom. For example, when reading a news article, a critical reader might ask whether the information is objective or influenced by political interest. This stage of reading demands not only intellectual maturity but also awareness of discourse, ideology, and perspective. It is the foundation of higher order thinking and academic literacy. Beyond critical understanding lies creative comprehension, creative reading, where readers go even further by applying their imagination and personal insight. In this stage, readers interpret the text in the light of their own experiences, values, and emotions. They may visualize scenes, predict alternate endings, or relate the themes of the text to broader human experiences. Creative reading allows reader to engage deeply with literature, seeing them reflected in characters or situations, and imagining possibilities beyond the author's words. For example, after reading a poem about loss, a creative reader might reflect on personal experiences of grief or reinterpret the poem's message in a contemporary context. This is the most personal and imaginative phase of reading, where understanding becomes transformation. Underlying all these stages, decoding, literal comprehension, inferential comprehension, critical reading, and creative comprehension is an ongoing interaction between the reader, the text, and the context. The reader brings to the process their prior knowledge, linguistic ability, cognitive skills, and emotional state. The text, in turn, provides linguistic structures, vocabulary, and ideas that must be decoded and interpreted. The context, social, cultural, and situational frames how meaning is understood. For instance, a historical speech might be read differently by a political scientist, a linguist, or a general reader, depending on their background and purpose. This triangular relationship shows that reading is not a passive perception of information but an active dialogue, a dialogue between mind and text. Furthermore, reading is an interactive and cyclic process rather than a linear one. Readers constantly move back and forth between different levels of comprehension as they encounter new or complex ideas. For example, while reading an academic article, a student might pause to decode a difficult term and then infer its meaning from context, and later evaluate the author's argument critically. In this sense, reading involves constant prediction by the reader, verification, and correction. In summary, the process of reading is a multifaceted act that moves from decoding symbols to constructing, analyzing, and reimagining meaning. It is a dialogue between text and mind, logic and emotion, structure and imagination. Each stage, from literal to critical, contributes to a fuller and more profound engagement with written language. By understanding this process, both teachers and learners can approach reading not as a mechanical skill but as an intellectual journey of discovery, of analysis, and reflection. So, that's all for today. We'll continue our discussion in the next session. Thank you.